In a scene from The Matrix, you expect Agent Smith to turn up because New York is it's like walking through a movie set, because you keep seeing places over and over again, almost wherever you go, which you've seen on the movies or television programs and what have you. So what we're going to do today is go and have a walk around some of the sites of New York and Manhattan and put them into a context that they're not put into usually. So we're now waiting for the train man to turn up. Well, there's no more iconic and recognizable symbol of the United States you'll find anywhere than, of course, the Statue of Liberty. If you look into the background, the Statue of Liberty was given to New York by French Freemasons out of Paris. And if you go to Paris, you see a mirror image, not as big, but a mirror image version of the Statue of Liberty on an island in the River Seine. And it's like everything, when you dig deep into things that are accepted to mean one thing, you realize there's a massive inversion going on, because this cabal, this network, inverts everything. It has a language of inversion. Therefore, for instance, the dove, to most of us, is a symbol of peace, but the inversion makes it to them a symbol of the opposite, the polarity, the inversion of peace. And so you have the Statue of Liberty, clearly from the name, supposedly representing liberty. And of course, what she's holding is the lighted torch, which is a classic symbol up there with the pyramid and all-seeing eye of this cabal and its esoteric language of symbolism. And so what you're looking at is not a statue of liberty, but a symbol of the inversion of liberty, which is what this cabal is inflicting upon the world. And so it's a kind of an illusion, the way that we're told to believe in the representative of liberty. And another illusion, by the way, is you look out there and you ask most people in the world, what's the Statue of Liberty made of? And they'll say, well, it's stone, it's a kind of green stone. It's not. It's made of copper, and not very thick copper either. And what's happened through what they call oxidation is it's over a period turned green, so it appears to be what it is now, kind of stone-like, when it's just copper. And when you go across there on these ferries and you go underneath it, in effect, inside it, you see, because the same process has not happened inside, you see the copper. And so it's like so many things. We're told to believe in one thing and to believe the official narrative of what something is or what has happened, and it invariably turns out to be something else. Well, just near where I was standing, Statue of Liberty straight over there, is this memorial to the American dead in the Second World War, and erected by the United States of America in proud and grateful remembrance of her sons who gave their lives in her service and who sleep in the American coastal waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Into thy hands, O Lord. And nothing kind of makes me seethe quicker than memorials to soldiers who have been sacrificed, not in the name of liberty, but in the name of manipulated wars, which is what the Second World War was, the First World War was. We're now seeing a Third World War more and more obviously being manipulated into place, because there was always planned to be three, to transform global society. And you see these memorials, you see them in Britain, and I saw many of the people that are involved in putting them up actually are genuinely trying to commemorate the bravery of the people involved. And no one's questioning that. Anyone that has in any way studied war or talked to people who've been involved in war, I mean, the guts it takes for those people to do some of the things they do is just extraordinary. What I'm saying is not that their bravery, their courage should not be marked, but it should be put into context. Because the context that we're given, the official narrative we're given, and if you look here, there's rows and rows of these concrete blocks full of names. I mean, the tens and tens of millions of people died in the wars. The First, Second World War alone. I mean, look at the people who died in one day in the First World War in the Somme and in northern France. But the context we're given is that they were bravely defending freedom. And the truth is, for anyone that wants to dig below the surface, is that they were fighting wars manipulated into place by those who didn't fight them but funded them on both sides of the Atlantic, not least the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers and such like, that created a transformation of human society because of those wars happening, which is why they were manipulated into place. Nothing changes society faster or more comprehensively than a war. And if you want to transform society, then have a war. You look at Syria now. Since 2011, you look at Syria before this all started, this proxy war by America and Britain against Assad, using, quote, rebels, which they're funding an army. Syria, before this started, was, compared with what we're seeing now, was a completely different country, with a completely different lifestyle. And now, what? It's death and destruction, day after day after day after day. Fear, people fleeing to get away from the violence. Nothing transforms a country quicker than a war. And that's why we have so many of them. And so when you see these commemorations, I'm all for commemorating the bravery of those that took part. But to put it in the context that they were fighting for freedom, they weren't. They were fighting for an agenda, without knowing so, of course, an agenda that has freedom not as its priority, but in its gun sights, as we've seen ever since. And over there, between these blocks, here is the Statue of Liberty. So you can see the narrative wherever you go, fighting for freedom, brave people fighting for freedom. America, the symbol of freedom. And it's all a freaking illusion when you go below the surface and you see it's all an inversion. Okay, we're now on Broadway, and here's another famous icon of New York, and particularly Wall Street, and big centre and attraction for tourists. It's that big bull which everyone would have seen, and virtually no one, if anyone there, having a picture taken, will know the background symbolism of that bull, which includes the symbol of Saturn, among other things, which is of course a big centre of worship for these networks of bloodlines that are behind Wall Street and Satanists, etc. Because it passes them by. Mainstream media are never going to go into this level of what's going on behind what we see, and therefore people remain in ignorance of what this is all about. It becomes just a tourist trap instead of a reminder of how the world is really controlled, as opposed to how we're told it's controlled. So everybody is kind of attracted to the front of this bull symbol of Wall Street, but I'll tell you where the front really is. We go around here. And what really symbolizes Wall Street more than anything else. There we go. That's Wall Street personified, the arse end of humanity, brackets C City of London. Anyway, let's go and see Wall Street. So here we are in Wall Street, where the United States and much of the rest of the world is really controlled from. And it's very symbolic. Symbolism's everywhere if you know how it all works. The end of this street is a church, and the church always dominated the town or the city or the place because it had this big spire or big tower, and it was looking down on the community because that was the power at the time. Religion was the power over the people. But now, very symbolically, this church here is absolutely dwarfed by the fantastic size of the buildings all around us that represent banking, that represent money. And that is the new religion which has taken over humanity, and now it has the biggest buildings looking down from a symbolic and literal point of power. But if we go down here just a little bit, we'll come to the United States Stock Exchange, and we'll have another great piece of inversion, because what you have is this absolutely enormous American flag, and this building is supposed to represent the United States. That flag is supposed to represent the people of the United States, not just the bankers, but everybody. That's how the story goes. But what the people in there and in this whole arena, same in London with the City of London Financial District, is they're not representing the United States, they're frickin' destroying it. You know, when we came through the subway this morning, there was this horrific sight of this person sleeping in one of the corridors in a terrible kind of situation. And while that's going on, and the homelessness in New York alone is fantastic, you've got people here playing the casino, because that's all it is, with people's lives all over the world. And we're supposed to venerate these people. We're supposed to be in awe of these people. All these bankers and these financial men, oh, they're so clever. No, they're not. They're just manipulating a manipulated, rigged system. And at the inner core, the people really running it, including, of course, most notably the Rothschilds, they have actually created this system of rigged finance, which constantly sucks the wealth of the world out of the people and into the hands of people like this, who lend people money that doesn't exist, called credit, and charge them interest on it. And when people can't pay it back because of the stock market crashes, manipulated, then those that have lent them fresh air money called credit then get their collateral, their wealth that does exist, their homes, their businesses, their land. And that process of lending people money that doesn't exist, credit, and then taking the collateral when they can't pay back the money that doesn't exist, has sucked the real wealth of the world out of the hands of the people in general and into the hands of a tiny few, represented by this building here. It pisses me off, doesn't even cut it. Well, this is just across from the Stock Exchange. This is the site of Federal Hall, April the 30th, 1789, where George Washington took the oath as the first president of the United States of America. These statues up there. And thus began the continuing myth that America is a free country because it has the government that started here all that time ago. When we've reached a point, as I stand here, in this election campaign between corrupt Hillary Clinton and barely one-dimensional Donald Trump, where anything that was done in terms of freedom and liberty and representation of the public in American politics, whatever some of the early people had in mind, it's clearly been hijacked. If indeed it existed all along among those that were actually running the show. So if we just go up here and have a look at this Washington statue. What you see here, this symbol here, the rods and the taping around of the rods next to Washington, that's the symbol, fasci, from which we get the term fascism. And it comes from the Roman Empire. And you'll notice how so many of these buildings, these original buildings, there's a Federal Hall here and the Stock Exchange across there, and you look at the buildings in the City of London and many others around here, they look like something from the Roman Empire or the days of ancient Greece, because these bloodlines have come out, that run the world today, have come out of those societies, those ancient societies, going back to Egypt too, and of course Babylon, and so they brought their architecture, if you like, with them to a large extent, especially when it was first being put together here. But this whole idea that America is free because anyone can become president of the United States is one of the great myths on planet Earth. When you look at, just since 1980, we've had Reagan-Bush in 1980 for 2 terms, and that wasn't Reagan-Bush, that was Bush-Reagan in terms of the power. Father Bush was the de facto president. And then we went to an official term of George Bush, then 2 terms of Bill Clinton, then 2 terms of boy George Bush, then 2 terms of Obama, and now as I stand here, a very good chance, staggeringly, pinch me, it can't be true, ouch, it is, Hillary Clinton could be the next president of the United States. And so out of a country of more than 300 million people, 2 families, the Bushes and the Clintons, have dominated American politics in terms of the presidency. And when you think then, take it even another step further, that as I've shown in my books and written about in my books, going way back into the 1990s, the Clintons and the Bushes are bosom buddies. They operate together as often as one unit, not least running drugs through the Mena airstrip in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas. So this is the truth behind all the myths and symbols and official narratives. A very few people dictate the lives of 300 plus million people, and indeed globally 7 billion plus. See, I keep saying it, but there's symbolism is all around us if we can see it. If you look just down the end, just one building from where I just was, talking about George Washington and the creation of the federal government and him as the first president. And just one building on from that is the Trump building, where Donald Trump, he's here now running for president of the United States. And it's extraordinary that someone who is so vacuous and so willing to say anything at any time and then something else further down the road, someone who is barely one-dimensional, can actually be running for the presidency. And I do find it interesting that Donald Trump is an old family friend of the Clintons. And of course, what he's been doing and saying has been very beneficial to Clinton's prospects of winning the presidency, because she is such an unbelievably hard sell, a bordering on the impossible person to promote because of all her corruption and all her lies, and not least the body count of people who, shall we say, are no longer with us, who had something on the Clintons, or and were saying they're about to reveal it, or had done something involving the Clintons they didn't like. When you look at that, how the people promoting her for president have to sell that, if they had a credible challenger who had some kind of wider appeal, she'd have no chance. But instead, Donald Trump's going along, shooting himself in both feet over and over again by what he says, and he's making life easier for her. But even then, it's going to be a challenge to sell Clinton. We've got this situation now where a significant majority of Americans don't want either of them. And this is the natural end outcome of a rigged system where a cabal on the hidden is controlling the president, no matter which party they represent. And it's been going on and on and on. And now we've got Donald Trump, a man I wouldn't trust to tell me the time in a room full of clocks,